Chapter 1071. Many young actors had problems expressing their emotions in the movie, which led to funny scenes where their facial features ran out of place. This was because, in their perception, sadness was crying, and happiness was laughing. As for Zyla, she had so much control over her tears that she could let or not let them fall out of her eyes, depending on the situation. She did not need to scream or roar hysterically to express her sadness, which was the most natural way to perform. The director agreed with the opinion of a seasoned actor. After the shooting was done, Zyla returned to her dressing room to remove her makeup. She could see that Yorick was lying against the door with a smile on his face from the mirror. "Your performance is truly phenomenal, Ms. Mayweather." Zyla put down the makeup remover and took lipstick out of her purse. "You didn't do it on purpose, did you?" She put on the lipstick so that she wouldn't look too pale after removing her makeup. She pressed her lips in front of the mirror and said, "I thought you said you didn't know me in the morning? So what are you doing here now?" Yorick chuckled and walked into the dressing room. He leaned toward the dresser and took a look at his watch. "Are you done with your shooting today? Do I have the honor of inviting you for a meal?" Zyla turned her head around to look at him. Yorick continued to smile at her. When Zyla and Yorick came out of the dressing room together, some extras were stunned at the back of the stage. They all talked to each other and whispered, "Isn't he the investor of this movie? Did he invest because of Zyla? But I heard that Nathan is pursuing Zyla, so why is Zyla with him right now? Do you know who Zyla is? Her father is the director of Royal Crown Entertainment Company. Even if she isn't an A-list celebrity anymore, her resources are comparable to that of an A-list celebrity. Even though Nathan has a bigger influence than Zyla, he doesn't have a big background." A female extra looked at them. "In my opinion, Nathan and Zyla don't make a good couple. Zyla has been giving me the impression that she isn't an easygoing person. If Nathan marries her, she will be too much for him, and their marriage won't last long." The rest of the people felt the girl was right. Zyla indeed looked like a demanding person. Perhaps it was because she was a model. She stood at about 5'6", so she looked much more domineering compared to other female actors who only stood at about 5'2" on average. On the other side, Nathan's height was about 5'8". Although he was considered tall, their vibe did not match each other. However, things were different when Zyla was walking beside the new investor. All of them felt that they might make a good couple. In a Western restaurant, Zyla sat in her chair with her arms crossed in front of her chest. She leaned against the back of the chair and looked at the man, who rested his chin on his intertwined hand. "So what do you want? I'm sure you're not going to have a meal with me, right, my little brother?" Yorick shifted into another position and placed his hand on his forehead. He smiled and said, "Little brother? Are you sure I'm younger than you, Ms. Mayweather?" Zyla chuckled and picked up the cup on the table. "I don't like beating around the bush. If you don't have anything else to say, I'm leaving. Let's make a deal. 3 months, Yorick said as he clipped the glass of wine between his fingers and swirled it. Zyla was stunned. She frowned. "A deal? You heard me right." Yorick lifted his head to look at her. "I can only stay in Zlokovia for 3 months, so we'll go our separate ways 3 months later. I will give you whatever you want within these 3 months." It was only now that the scale fell in Zyla's eyes. She chuckled and asked, "You're not looking for a contracted girlfriend, are you?" Yorick lifted his eyebrows and replied, "Well, you can put it that way." She harumphed and looked at the cup of water in front of her. "You want to use me as a shield to stop some unwanted people like Jody from approaching you, right?" Chapter 1072. A hint of recognition flashed across Yorick's eyes. "You're a smart girl, Ms. Mayweather." It seemed to him that he had found the right person. Zyla lifted her head to meet his gaze. "What makes you think that I'll help you?" "You've helped me once, so I'm sure you can help me for the second time," Yorick said as he elegantly cut through the steak. "If you help me this time, I'm sure you'll be very satisfied with the rewards that you'll receive." As he was speaking, he had finished cutting the steak. He switched the plate with Zyla's and added, I'll be loyal to you and you alone during these 3 months. I'll be your boyfriend, and I can help you to get rid of that man. Zyla looked at the neatly cut pieces of steak on the plate. She rested her chin on her finger and said, Who told you that I need your help to get rid of that man? Yorick chuckled. According to my investigation, within this month of pursuing you, he was also pursuing that woman as well as his female fans. Zyla was stumped. A hint of surprise crossed her eyes, but she did not believe Yorick entirely. Yorick picked up the wine glass and put it in front of his lips. As he took a sip, he said, You don't believe me? She chuckled. That's his own private life. It has nothing to do with me. Of course, it has something to do with you, Yorick replied as he put the wine glass down. Zester Media can't provide any good resources to him anymore. He's going to get overpassed by other newcomers. If he loses his resources, he'll fall from an A-list actor to a C or D-list actor. And you, Ms. Mayweather, you're the daughter of the director of Royal Crown, and the resources you can offer are a lot better. If he can take you down, it will be like earning a ticket to his success in his career, so do you think he'll give up so easily? Zyla retracted her gaze. That's your assumption only. A smile appeared at the corner of Yorick's lips. He looked intently at her. Do you want to make a bet, Ms. Mayweather? What are we going to bet on? Zyla asked. Let's see if my assumption is correct or not. If I lose, I retract the deal just proposed and will never appear in front of you again. If I win, he paused for a moment as a smile hopped into his eyes. You'll have to agree to my deal, Ms. Mayweather. Zyla looked at him. If he did not know some insider information, he wouldn't have said it out so confidently. She lowered her head and smiled. You know with certainty that I'll lose, so it looks to me that I have to agree to your deal. Are you not going to fight for it? He asked with a smile. Zyla touched the lipstick mark on the cup's rim and replied, Why should I fight for an irrelevant man? I know better than you what kind of man he is. Yorick smiled, but he did not say anything. At Stoslo's DePaul town, Maisie brought Nolan to visit her grandfather. A middle-aged woman brought them to the nursing home. In the courtyard, Hernandez sat in a wheelchair looking at the scenery in the distance. Grandpa. Maisie walked over to him. Hernandez turned his head around and smiled at her gently. You've come. She stopped beside Hernandez and squatted down. She looked at him and said, Yeah, I've come to see you. He lifted his hand to stroke her head and said, Please forgive me for not telling you about everything, Z. Maisie shook her head. I knew you wouldn't die so easily, so I was truly happy when Uncle Irwin brought me the news. He withdrew his hand and looked at Nolan. Thank you very much, kid. It seems to me that my granddaughter is in good hands. Nolan smiled. Of course. I'd take care of her even if you didn't tell me to. Humph. Hernandez turned around and continued. Although I used to hate the Goldmans in the past, seeing that my granddaughter is having such a happy life, I'll do you a favor and stop hating you guys. Chapter 1073. Maisie was tickled pink when she heard what Hernandez had said. She knew that her grandfather had long stopped hating the Goldmans. It was just that he refused to admit Nolan was pushing the wheelchair while Maisie was walking next to Hernandez. All three of them walked along the path that was lined with trees. Grandpa, why don't you go back to stay in the De Arma mansion? Maisie asked. I'm old. I want to stay somewhere quiet. This place has a nice view, and it's good for me to live a retired life, Hernandez replied, but I'm worried about you. Maisie looked at him. Hernandez chuckled. You don't have to worry about me. There are people taking care of me here. As he was talking, he lifted his head to look at her. I'm not worried about you, because I know this fellow behind me will take care of you. Nolan, who was pushing the wheelchair, lifted his eyebrow slightly. Don't you think it's more convenient to stay in the town? Besides, it's easier for us to take care of you as well. Hernandez harumphed lightly. I don't want any help from the Goldmans, especially from your grandfather. If you go back with us, you can at least bicker with my grandfather and make him less grumpy as well, Nolan said faintly. Maisie couldn't help but chuckle. This was the first time she had seen a grandson doing something like this to his own grandfather. Considering the feud between Titus and Hernandez, it was inevitable that they would bicker with each other. Hernandez let out a boisterous laugh. If Titus wants to die early, he can go ahead. I still want to enjoy the rest of my life in peace. Nolan looked at him and added, your grandson is in Staslo. Do you not want him to visit you every day? Hernandez froze and hesitated. Maisie chuckled and chimed in, yeah, we can ask Waylon to keep you company, so let's move back to the De Arma mansion. Hernandez could not change Maisie and Nolan's minds, so he nodded and agreed in the end. After talking to the people from the nursing home, they sent Hernandez back to the De Arma mansion in the town. The De Arma mansion had been refurbished, and they had hired a new batch of servants. However, the former butler was still there. Sir. The butler's eyes turned red around the rims when he saw Hernandez. Hernandez looked at him. You're still here. The butler lowered his head and smiled. If I went away, then there would be no one left to take care of the house. Hernandez grabbed his hand and patted the back of his hand. It must have been very hard for you. No, it is not. Sir, I'm truly happy to have you back, he replied in a serious manner. Hernandez looked at the mansion that stood before him and lamented, you're the only one in the De Arma family who hasn't changed. Even I have to spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair now. The butler looked at him. As long as you're still alive, no matter what you've become, you will still be my master. The butler took over Nolan's position and pushed Hernandez into the mansion. Maisie and Nolan were still standing in the courtyard. She leaned her head on Nolan's shoulder and said, it's a relief to have Grandpa back to stay in the De Arma family mansion. Nolan grabbed her into his arms and kissed her forehead. Don't worry. I handpicked all of the De Arma family's bodyguards, and they will protect your grandfather. Mom. Waylon's voice rang out behind them. Maisie turned her head to the back and saw him running toward her. Maisie hugged him and caressed his head. Waylon, welcome back. After that, she saw Nicholas get out of the car. Nolan looked at him and asked, what brought you here? Dad? Nicholas said, I went to pick Waylon up from his school. I learned that you brought Hernandez back, so I brought him here so that he can have a look at his own grandson. Maisie carried Waylon into the mansion. Hernandez turned his head to look at him, and Waylon greeted him respectfully, Grandpa Hernandez. Maisie was worried that Hernandez couldn't recognize him, so she explained, Grandpa, he's Colton's brother. His name is Waylon. Hernandez waved his hand at him and said, come closer and let me have a good look at you. Waylon did as he was told and walked up to Hernandez. Hernandez caressed his head and nodded. He looks a lot like his father. Colton should be around the same height as him already, right? Chapter 1074. Maisie smiled and replied, Waylon is the older brother, so he's taller than Colton. By the way, even Daisy is about the same height as Colton right now. Nolan and Nicholas walked into the mansion, stunning Hernandez. He retracted his hand and began wheeling his wheelchair. Why are you Goldmans keep showing up one after another? Where's that old fart? Don't tell me that he'll be the one who'll show up in front of me next? Nicholas chuckled and replied. Nolan's grandfather has been hospitalized, so I doubt he could show up here. Titus has been hospitalized? Hernandez was dumbfounded. After a short while, he laughed. He has always been very healthy, but I guess he can't escape the fate of getting hospitalized because of his old age. It will be unacceptable if I don't pay him a visit and laugh at him. He asked them where Titus was hospitalized and ordered the butler to bring him there. He had to go there and bicker with him. Nicholas was not surprised at all. However, neither he nor Nolan stopped him. After all, it was time for them to give Titus a lesson so that he would take care of his body even more. Several days later, Hernandez went to the hospital. He specifically picked a day when Madame Hathaway was not there, and Titus was so infuriated that he wanted to discharge himself from the hospital. Both of them refused to back down and bickered with each other for a long while. Initially, they all thought Titus would be very displeased with the arrival of Hernandez, but it seemed like they were wrong. Now that there was someone to bicker with him, he did not scold his son or grandson that much anymore. Since he still had to stay in the hospital for some time, Titus would love for Hernandez to come over and bicker with him every day to kill his time. Maisie couldn't help herself and laugh after listening to the story that Nolan brought back from the hospital. Do you think their relationship will improve after this? Sitting on the bed, Nolan flipped through the magazine and chuckled. Who knows? Maybe they will. After all, they're already old, and it's time for them to put their grudges behind them. Maisie pulled the magazine out of his hand and sat on top of him. She cupped her hands around his cheek and said, "You started reading the magazine as soon as you returned. What's going on? Are you not interested in me anymore?" A smile hopped into Nolan's eyes as he said, "What are you talking about?" He grabbed her wrist and pushed her into his arms. "There's no way I would be disinterested in you, Z. Then why are you still reading the magazine?" Maisie asked as she played with his collar. Nolan pinched at her chin, lowered his head, and kissed her lips. "That's because I'm waiting for you." He turned around and secured her tightly in his embrace. His breath wrapped around her, and it made her shudder. She responded by clinging to him. At Bassburg, #Zyla is a two-timer. As soon as the post came out, it became one of the hottest posts on Google Trends. Several netizens remained neutral, while Nathan's fans were attacking Zyla under the post as well as in the comment section of her Facebook. Zyla had just finished her shooting and was reading her script on a folding chair when her assistant approached her. "Zyla." She handed the phone to Zyla and said, "Look, people are scolding you on the internet." Zyla just glanced at it and replied, "Let them be. How can you be so calm? That scumbag is slinging mud. See his true face? Do you want them to misunderstand you?" her assistant said exasperatingly. She opened up her phone and added, "No, I have to explain the whole situation to them." The assistant tried to clarify the whole thing on Zyla's Facebook as well as hinting that it was Nathan who was two-timing Zyla and slinging mud at her. However, it did not work as she expected. Instead, Nathan's fans scolded her even more, and the comment section was littered with many vicious curse words. Some of them even went to the extent of telling Zyla to kill herself or saying that she was shameless. Each comment was vicious, and it was uncomfortable to read through them. Are his fans all crazy? The assistant said exasperatingly, "We should have taken a recording when we had the chance." Zyla leaned comfortably in the folding chair and said, "What's the use of clarification at this point? Can you provide any evidence?" Chapter 1075. Zyla's assistant was stumped. "Then, let's issue a warning letter. Calm down, Mindy." "Just let him be," Zyla said. She picked up a cup of fruit tea and took a sip. "There will be someone who'll take care of him for us." Since someone wanted to become her hero, she might as well give him a chance. Mindy was stunned. She did not know if she should believe in Zyla or not. After Zyla finished her fruit tea, she let out a burp. She then looked at Mindy and said, "Go buy another fruit tea for me. I want it to be cold. Then, put it in the car. The weather is awfully hot." Just when Mindy went to do Zyla's bidding, several actresses beside the female lead actor turned their heads around and cast their gazes on Zyla. Zyla was wearing a pair of sunglasses. She put the script under her head, and she was taking a nap. She did not rehearse with the female lead actors. One of the actresses couldn't hold herself back anymore and said, "We can let it pass at the fact that she joined the movie with investment, but how could she be so arrogant after being praised by the director a few times?" That's right. Even if she is an international model and started out in the modeling industry, she's still a newcomer in the entertainment industry, isn't she? If it hadn't been for her father, would she have so many good resources? When Mariwan, the female lead, heard what they were talking about, she stopped them and said figuratively, all right. Stop it. We're all in the same crew, and it won't bring us any good if we make a big deal out of it. Mariwan, you're too kind. Yeah. Zyla doesn't look like a good woman at all. After all, look at her face. I can see nothing but viciousness in it. An actress raised her voice and said, while receiving the gifts and enjoying Nathan's courting, she said that he was not worthy of her. If it were not for her father, she wouldn't even be able to join this crew. Zyla took her sunglasses down and sat up. What did you say? The actress refused to back down despite the fact that the people around her were asking her to stop. Did I say anything wrong? We can still find the post on Google Trends. We're not blind. Didn't you accept a gift from Nathan some time ago? And now you've already kicked him away? Zyla got up and walked toward them. The actress took a step back subconsciously. We're in the shooting booth right now. I'm talking about the things you said in the front, not those at the back, Zyla interrupted flatly. She crossed her arms in front of her chest and continued. You want a rehearsal, right? She turned around to look at Mariwan and continued. I've read through all the script I can play against you without referring to it. Marian's expression froze, but she soon came around to her senses and said, all right, then. That actress was dumbfounded. I said so many bad things about her, but she's only thinking about the rehearsal? When Zyla was playing against Mariwan, everyone was stunned at how good her memory was. She did not even need to refer to the script, as she had managed to memorize every line. It was as if she was Lily herself. The people at the scene were so absorbed in her performance that they had forgotten about Zyla's news on Google Trends. The female lead, Winnie, that Mariwan played pated in comparison to Zyla's Lily. After all, the character setting of Winnie in the original story was simple. She just needed to be kind, innocent, and remain true to her heart. Zyla, that was a really good performance, the director said. He liked her even more. Initially, he thought she would have a hard time performing since this was the first time she acted in a movie. He did not expect that she would perform so well. Mariwan, freshening up her makeup, felt a bit uncomfortable when she heard the director praising Zyla for her performance. After all, she was the female lead, and she should be the one they should be taking care of. Even if she was not an A-list celebrity, she was very close to becoming one, while Zyla was just a C-list newcomer. Oh my, the situation on Google Trends has changed again. Chapter 1076. What? Let me take a look. Several extras in the crew scrolled through Google Trends and ran into two huge pieces of news. Sure enough, the scheme backfired not long after the new article came out. #Nathan Hayes slept with his fans. #Nathan Hayes used Zyla Mayweather as his stepping stone. These two articles topped the trending chart in a matter of hours, pushing the new articles that talked about Zyla down the list. Many fans did not believe it at first, thinking that it was part of Zyla's plan to whitewash herself by pushing the blame onto somebody else. However, an unknown netizen uploaded a video, which shocked all of Nathan's fans. My God! Nathan is actually such a person? I was a fan before this, and this just ruined my love for him. The video showed Nathan hugging some women and kissing two female influencers in the clubhouse. And his hand was found placed on the body of one of the influencers. As for the source of the video recording, it seemed like a candid shot of the scene, but the man in the video was indeed Nathan. And Nathan was found wearing the same suit that he had been wearing in the video in one of the photos that a reporter had taken when he went to the clubhouse and published a while back. Back then, Nathan had come forward and clarified that he was there at a friend's gathering, and he did not elaborate much about that statement after that. The article also revealed that it was not the first time for Nathan, and the two female internet influencers were both fans of Nathan. To be exact, they were super fans who had spent substantial amounts of money to show their support for Nathan on Patreon and Twitch. Nathan did not only get it on with these two female influencers, but also with some other newcomers in the film industry. He might not dare to make a move on S&A-tier actresses and celebrities, but the less popular actresses and internet influencers were all his targets. Zyla walked toward the actress, who was in a daze, and refuted, a word of advice, don't judge a book from its cover. But a tiny part of what you said is correct. I do think that Nathan is nowhere near good enough for me. Public opinion regarding Nathan's actions continued to roll out of control. Although he did come forward to clarify all his actions and sent out stacks of letters of demand, threatening to sue those who were trying to slander him, most netizens no longer believed in a word he said. Most of Nathan's fans still insisted on believing that their idol had not done such a vicious thing and chose to believe that the video had been deep fake. At least that was what they thought until a female influencer posted a series of screenshots of the chat history that she shared with Nathan, claiming that Nathan had cheated on her. She mentioned that she initially wanted to expose Nathan, but she got banned from the entire internet influencer circle because Nathan had done something behind the scene using his status as a celebrity. She then listed all the sufferings she had to endure because of a bad decision that she had made back then. She also told the public that she had finally found a medium to expose all of Nathan's actions now that this matter was getting out of control on the internet. The female influencer's testimony was like the last nail that crucified Nathan, putting Nathan's status in the entertainment industry at risk as more and more netizens joined the crusade against him. That was how Nathan lost hundreds of thousands of fans overnight. Still, Nathan's team was not ready to be outdone. They uploaded the screenshot of an online bank transfer, claiming that the female influencer cheated, lied, and slandered Nathan for money. Google Trends was almost fully occupied by news regarding Nathan's incident, and the comment section was a literal war zone as netizens stood up for who they believed in. #ItTakes2 to make such an act viable. Both the man and the woman are filthy and lustful creatures. #TM sure that the girl is doing so because she couldn't get the payment that she asked for. Or else why did she choose to expose Nathan only when he's in such deep shit? What has the woman done wrongly? The chat history shows that Nathan lied to her, saying that he'll love her forever and telling her that she's his only love in the world. However, the man who made such promises to the woman has now been exposed, saying that he has a thing for 3P and has been practicing 3P while he was flirting and courting the woman. If this isn't a lie, can anyone in the comment section please give me the correct definition of the word lie? So, is there anyone else who would like to fight for their idol? Who knows if the chat history is fake? Everything can be photoshopped these days, so what makes you think the screenshots are genuine? Inside the car, Zyla was scrolling through her Twitter feed. She did not expect that the rich boy actually had the ability to get his hands on Nathan's unknown secrets. Mindy was also reading all the trending articles on Twitter and Google Trends and felt content. This scumbag deserves it. I really thought that he was quite a righteous man at first, but I guess I should never judge a book from its cover. She turned her head around and asked Zyla, who's the person who exposed all this news for you? Chapter 1077. It turns out that what she said is true. Someone will resolve this matter on our behalf. Zyla turned off the screen of her phone and looked out the car window. That rich boy. That rich boy? Mindy racked her brains and was flustered all of a sudden. Is he the new investor in our film? Zyla fiddled with the earrings. Who else could it be apart from him? Mindy frowned. The rich boy is a foreigner, isn't he? Does he have any ulterior motive? Or has he taken a fancy to you? After what had happened with Nathan, Mindy did not dare to match Zyla up with anyone else. She had even started to think about being more cautious. Zyla smiled. We've only made a deal with each other. As soon as she finished speaking, her cell phone rang. She answered the call after seeing that the caller ID that was blinking on the screen of her phone was Rich Boy. What do you plan to do this time around? Are you planning to buy me dinner again? Yorick chuckled. Ms. Mayweather, have you forgotten our current relationship? I didn't forget. Zyla glanced out the window. Just give me the address. I just finished filming, and I'll need some time to return home to take a shower and change into a fresh set of clothes. Zyla came to the hotel suite in the evening, squinted slightly, and stood at the door for a while, before ringing the doorbell. Yorick came out and opened the door after a while. He seemed to have just taken a bath and was only wearing a bathrobe. The slightly messy hair was still wet and had not been dried. He leaned against the door and took a glance at Zyla. She was wearing green casual clothes, a cap, and no makeup. He squinted slightly. What impeccable timing. Then should I wait for you to finish changing? Zyla did not plan to go in either. He turned sideways. There's no need for that. Zyla stepped forward and walked in. He's actually living in the hotel's presidential suite, which costs $10,000 per night. Zyla sat on the couch by herself. Aren't we going out to eat? Yorick sat opposite her and threw the towel aside. I didn't tell you that I wanted to eat, did I? Zyla laughed out of anger. If we're not going out for dinner, then what am I doing here? Yorick raised his eyebrows and smiled. Take a guess. Zyla leaned back. If I'm not mistaken, the terms of our deal don't include anything other than having meals together. Seeing her solemn expression, Yorick could not help but laugh out loud. What's the idea that you have in mind now? He then took a contract out of the folder on the table and placed it in front of her. I asked you to come here to sign this contract and get yourself familiarized with our relationship. Zyla breathed a sigh of relief. She picked up the contract and skimmed through it. The contract will stay relevant over the next 3 months, and we'll break up after 3 months. We'll then go back to how things were before this after that, and he'll pay me 3 months' worth of fee. She counted the zeros behind the amount she would get after the completion of the contract, and she was dumbfounded. $15 million? Yorick crossed his legs. I've never been stingy with women who I think are worth the money. Zyla sneered inwardly when she heard this. It turns out that he's just another scumbag, but one sitting on top of the scumbag pyramid, unlike Nathan, who will go for any woman he can get his hands on. Yorick looked at her. If you are satisfied with the terms, you can leave your signature at the bottom left of the document. Zyla picked up the pen and signed it without hesitation. Since you can come up with $15 million, casually, you're indeed the son of some filthy rich family, aren't you? Yorick walked to the cupboard and took out a bottle of Berlinberg. Did I once tell you that I'm the son of some rich family? Zyla choked on her reply. He actually didn't. Then you must be some local tycoon or rich redneck. He put the wine glass on the table. Do I look like a local tycoon or a redneck to you? She leaned against the back of the couch and propped the side of her forehead against the palm of her hand. You're dumb and filthy rich. Aren't those the two main characteristics of all local tycoons and rich rednecks? Yorick poured the wine into the glass, and his charming and handsome face was instantly reflected on the glass side. This is my first time hearing someone call me that. This sounds very refreshing. He then put down the red wine. Do you want a drink? No, I don't drink at night. She would never drink at a stranger's place. Chapter 1078. Yorick pinched the foot of the glass, took a sniff at the aroma of the wine, and smiled. You're quite a wary person, Ms. Mayweather. I'm in an enclosed room with another man, so how can I not be a little more cautious? Zyla changed her sitting posture casually and placed her legs on the couch. I still don't know your name, Mr. Rich Boy. After all, I have to accompany you and act around you in the coming 3 months. I have to know at least what your last name is. He lifted the glass and glanced at her through the transparent glass. My last name is Hathaway. Zyla was astounded for a short moment. This last name actually a thing in Zlkova? It seems that you don't pay attention to the news, Ms. Mayweather. Yorick believed she really did not know his identity. If she were trying to play hard to get, it would be impossible for her to put such a question forward. I'm not interested in the news. Zyla flipped through the contract. Since I've signed the contract, it's time for me to take my leave. The doorbell rang. Zyla looked at him. Are you expecting other guests? Yorick shook the glass lightly. A person who would come looking for me at this time of the day, who do you think it'd be? Zyla had a hunch, so she got up, walked to the door, and opened it. When Jody, standing outside the door, saw her again, her expression changed. How could it be, Zyla held the door with one hand. Miss Smalls, what are you doing here? Are you looking for my honey? Honey? Jodi's face turned pale. She looked into the room in disbelief, and Yorick was sitting on the couch as if he had just come out of the shower. She pushed Zyla aside, broke in, and stood in front of Yorick. Mr. Hathaway, would you rather accept her than me? Yorick laughed. If you have a family background that can go against that of Ms. Mayweather's, I'll definitely consider you. Jodi's family background had always been a sore spot in her life. Everyone looked down on her because her background was not prominent enough, and her family was poor. She clenched her fists tightly and bit her lip, but she's staying by your side only for your money and fame. Zyla walked behind Yorick, leaned forward, and placed her hands on his shoulders, pretending to be intimate. Yes, my honey knows that I like money and just gave me $15 million, ain't that right, honey? Seeing that she had already gotten into character so quickly, Yorick took a sip of wine and said, yes, I'll give you even more as long as you like it. Jodi froze in place as her fingernails sank into her palms. Ms. Mayweather, with the family background that you have, are you willing to be one of the many lovers that Mr. Hathaway has? He won't even give you an official title when you're with him. Zyla took a glance at her new manicure and rubbed her nails. Why would I ask for an official title from him? An official title is nothing more than a shackle that locks me in place. But Mr. Hathaway won't stay in Zlokova for a long time. Aren't you afraid of being abandoned? Jodi could not believe it. Zyla has actually fallen to such an extent. What about the pride that she's been upholding all this while? Zyla leaned back into the couch. It's okay. I don't mind that. Jodi was not reconciled and glanced at Zyla. Have you fallen to this extent only because Louis didn't choose to marry you? Zyla's expression dimmed slightly when Louis's name was mentioned. Thus, Jodi continued to provoke her. You love Louis so much, so you probably wouldn't be able to get over him so quickly, right? You had been chasing after him for 6 years. Riley wouldn't even stand a chance if you hadn't gone abroad to develop your career. Zyla stood up and walked toward Jodi, who subconsciously backed away. I am not wrong, am I? No, you're really wrong. She poked her finger at her shoulder. I'm Zyla Mayweather. Do you know how many men would queue in front of this hotel just to get the chance to spend 5 minutes with me? So, why should I abstain from anything only because of a married ex? Humans change. The man that I'm currently going out with is Mr. Hathaway, so I guess there goes your chance? Now know your place, go home, take a bath, and go to bed. Everything is possible in your dreams. Chapter 1079. You. A muffled laugh came from behind. Yorick put down his wine glass, walked toward Zyla, and wrapped his arms around her waist. Miss Smalls, we're about to go to bed already. Do you want to stay back and watch? Zyla deliberately hid in his arms. Honey, you naughty boy. How could you ask others to watch? Yorick pinched her chin and stared down at her bare face. Sweat beads rolled down from the sides of Jodi's forehead. Are they planning to kiss in front of me? Jodi's eyes turned bloodshot due to the wrath burning within her chest. In the end, she bit her lip, turned her head away, and ran out of the room. It was also at this time that Zyla pushed Yorick away from her, walked to the couch, and picked up her bag. That should mark the end of tonight's play. I should head back already. How are you so sure that she won't be waiting at the door? Yorick interrupted her with a smirk. She stopped moving forward and looked back at him. Then are you telling me that I'll have to wait until the middle of the night to leave? She was about to have a mental breakdown. I have been filming recently, and I'm only getting around 4 hours of sleep every night. I'm struggling to even keep my eyes open now. I can't wait any longer. I'm just someone who wants to go back home to sleep now. I have an empty guest room here, Yorick suggested softly as he turned and walked toward the master bedroom. You can always lock the door from the inside if you're worried. Zyla was at a loss for words. In the end, she could only make do with staying here for the night. The next morning, Zyla was woken up by a phone call. She sat up groggily and answered the phone. Mindy's voice sounded as soon as the call was connected. "You're late. You're needed in all sets throughout the whole day today." Zyla remembered something, quickly turned over, got out of bed, and looked at the time. Shit. It's 10 a.m. already. I'll depart right now. She ended the call, freshened up in a hurry, opened the guest room door, and walked out. Yorick was sitting at the dining table and reading the newspaper while a waiter served him his breakfast. She was dumbfounded. Yorick closed the newspaper. "Come and have some breakfast first." Zyla scratched her hair and waved her hand. "I'm running late already, I'll pass." Yorick picked up the phone. "I'll apply for an emergency leave from the director on your behalf, and I'll take you there in person after breakfast." It was already noon when Zyla arrived at the filming studio. Fortunately, the director had filmed the scenes with the other actors first. Mindy waited for Zyla, who was late, at the studio entrance. She then hurried over when she saw her arriving at the studio. "Thank God the director didn't complain much about you being late. He only told us that you've applied for an emergency leave." "But what exactly did you tell the director when you called to apply for leave?" "The director seems quite happy after getting your update." Zyla went to the dressing room and was about to put on makeup. "The director is happy because Mr. Hathaway, the local tycoon, has agreed to invest even more money into this project." Mariwan walked past the dressing room with another actress, and the actress said disdainfully, "The advantage that one can get when she's dating one of the investors is really unbelievable. Even arriving at work late is allowed." Mindy turned to glare at her and wanted to refute her, but she could not find a viable reason for her to do so. Zyla did not care what the actress said at all. She started shooting her parts as soon as she came into the studio, after putting on makeup. The scene that they were shooting was a fight scene between Zyla and the male lead of the show. In this scene, Moses Miller would stab her with a dagger for Winnie Locke's sake. Zyla had gotten into character ever since she got out of the dressing room. One of the staff members handed the male lead the prop for the scene, and the male lead took the dagger into his hand, preparing to start filming. Following the director's instructions, both the actors started acting immediately. Moses Miller pointed the dagger at Lily LeBlanc, and the latter stared at him in disbelief. "Are you planning to kill me?" Moses Miller responded, "I disdain the idea of killing you, Lily LeBlanc, but you're the one who harmed Winnie." Lily LeBlanc laughed, her eyes bloodshot. "So what if it's me? What are you going to do? Are you going to kill me in order to achieve justice? Then come at me." Moses Miller yelled, "You're the one who's left me with no other choice." He stabbed Lily LeBlanc with his dagger. The dagger was a prop that would retract back into the handle. The male lead did not even try to pull his punches when he stabbed Lily LeBlanc, the character that Zyla played. Chapter 1080. Unexpectedly, an accident happened. The dagger that was originally a prop stabbed right into Zyla's right chest. The male lead was astonished, and his mind went blank instantly. Zyla lowered her head and took a glance at the wound, and a vague sense of pain originated from the stab. What the fuck? The dagger turns out to be the real deal. The director and the extras on the side did not notice anything out of the ordinary and did not stop the shooting. The male lead was about to draw out the dagger and yell to the director for help, but that was when Zyla grabbed the blade suddenly, gnashed her teeth, and uttered her line in difficulty, "Moses Miller, you actually have the balls to hurt me. You still ended up hurting me for that slut." The male lead's hands trembled a little. Unbelievable. She persevered after such an accident took place. Seeing that she had moved on with her line, the male lead could only bite the bullet and continue. "Yes, if you dare to. If you, cut." The director stopped filming when he saw the male lead's pale expression. "Howard, what's the matter with you?" Zyla took 2 steps backward, and Mindy went up to her to support her and shove a blood bag underneath Zyla's clothes. However, she was shocked when she took a closer look at Zyla. "Sir, the prop is real. Zyla has been stabbed." "What?" The director shot up from his chair immediately. The director and a few staff members surrounded them in a matter of seconds. He picked up the dagger, and his expression changed instantly. "Who's the one who handed this prop to Howard? Get someone from the props team here. Who will be held accountable for this incident if something goes wrong?" Mindy tried to stop the bleeding for Zyla as she cried out loud, "Call an ambulance, there's so much blood." Zyla's complexion turned extremely pale because of the profuse bleeding from the wound. She leaned against Mindy's arms. I want to fall asleep so badly, wake me up when we're at the hospital, Zyla, don't sleep." Soon, the ambulance arrived at the scene. Everyone on the crew had their work suspended, and all the extras and other actors who were at the scene, standing by on the side, looked as if they were shocked and petrified. "Oh my God! Zyla is really giving this film everything she's got." Ariel Dagger stabbed her, yet she insisted on finishing her lines. "Yeah, I would have fainted on the spot." The actresses standing by the side felt so embarrassed when they saw Zyla being carried onto the ambulance on a stretcher. Not to mention the extras, even they could not do what Zyla had done themselves. Mariwan felt even more upset when she heard the appreciation that the people around her had for Zyla because of this incident. She's a model who didn't even take acting classes professionally, as well as the daughter of the director of Royal Crown. However, she works even harder than any S-list actor or actress that I know. It's no wonder the director appreciates her so much. The man hiding in the shadows wearing a mask saw the chaotic scene and left in a hurry. At the hospital, Zyla had been unconscious for a long time, but when she slowly opened her eyes and regained consciousness, she was already lying in the ward. She wanted to move, but her chest hurt so badly that she could not help but hiss. The man sitting in the chair closed the magazine in his hand, and a deep voice sounded. "You've woken up. I thought our contract would end before it even started." The voice caught Zyla off guard. She turned her head to the side and stared at Yorick. She did not expect that he would be there, but she soon returned to her senses. "I haven't gotten my $15 million. How can I let myself die?" Yorick placed the magazine on the bedside table. "Are you that poor? You're Mr. Mayweather's daughter." She chuckled. "I'm not poor at all, but there's no reason for me to say no to extra cash, right?" Yorick laughed. "She might be the only person in this world that would say that straight to my face." "Zyla." Mindy came into the ward at this moment. She was relieved to see her awake. "Thank God, you're finally fine." Yorick stood up. "You should take a good rest first." After Yorick left, Mindy walked up to the bed, took a glance at the door, and whispered, "Are you dating our new investor?"